Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Official Visit podcast. I am Tyson Alger. I'm joined here by Andrew Greif, and it's our first podcast of Game Week. The Ducks host the UC Davis Aggies on Saturday at 2 p.m. Is that right, Andrew?
It is right.
2 p.m. at Autzen Stadium, and the season's underway. Some of you guys watching around the country have probably watched a couple of games already. Oregon State got underway last night. Actually, a pretty exciting game for the Beavers. They lose in Minneapolis. But Andrew, we're finally here. It seems like it took a long time, but we're finally here.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we walked out of the basement of the Alamo Bowl, and it's been a really curious off season. I'm so fascinated about this year, just even more so than last year, where with the intrigue of the defense and Brady Hoke. I know last year we had Vernon, which was a crazy circus and so interesting. But this year with Hoke here, I'm just really curious about that. Then you also add in another graduate transfer quarterback, and then the backup behind him, who everybody wants to play. I think people want to see Justin Herbert almost more than Prukop at this point. You add it all together, and I'm really curious about how this year is going to go.
Yeah, I think you kind of bring up a good point there, that it's kind of a rare situation where you have a starting quarterback that no one has seen before, yet there's still probably more excitement about Herbert, which if you've been reading our stuff over the last couple of weeks, shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, because Herbert was definitely kind of the darling of fall camp. True freshman out of Eugene, went to Sheldon High School. Was a relatively kind of unheard of recruit because he broke his leg during his junior year of high school, but kind of came into camp and swept everyone off their feet. Now, Andrew, I know you kind of wrote a pretty interesting story that posted, I think, this morning about just kind of the connection between Dakota Prukop and Justin Herbert. Can you kind of let us in on that a little bit?
Yeah, it goes like this. The last 2 years, Prukop threw touchdown passes to a guy named Mitchell Herbert, who just happens to be the older brother of Justin Herbert, who now is backing up Prukop. So it's interesting because they actually met in January. Mitchell Herbert was back in Eugene, and that was hometown, and had Prukop over, and he said that he and Justin kind of hit it off. They liked each other a lot, and that's when Justin was still a high school basketball player. He also had to go through baseball season, and it's kind of funny now. You wouldn't realize that those two are going to be the most talked about guys of fall camp. I asked his mom that. I was like, did you expect, in your living room, you'd have two of the most scrutinized people of the season? She was like, listen, I love Justin, and he's super talented, but I never thought that would be the case this early. So it's an interesting connection. And Mitchell, he played last night in Idaho. His parents are now going Friday night to watch their younger son, Patrick, play at Southridge in Beaverton. And then tomorrow, they're going to Eugene to watch the Duck game.
That's racking up some miles.
And the best part is they have 4 season tickets that they've been part of the family for a while. And their mom, Holly, said that she has not been to an Oregon game in at least 4 years. And all of a sudden, there's like a ton of competition for those tickets.
Do you think it was kind of... I mean, we kind of use this word surprising about Herbert, and I think a lot of us weren't necessarily expecting this out of it. But, going into fall camp, Helfrich pegged it as like a 3-player race between what we thought was primarily Prukop and Johnson with a potentially Terry Wilson. I know when signing day was announced last year and Herbert was part of it, I kind of thought he was just going to be an also-ran. I don't know about you.
I didn't know much about him. We're so busy, we don't follow a ton of recruiting at the level of our recruiting writer, Andrew Nemick, who was really high on him. But I didn't really know a whole lot, and he was a really good multi-sport athlete. But, I think there's a bias about Oregon players. Even though I'm from Oregon, it's like, you always hear, even the coaches say that we have to go elsewhere because we can't recruit in our backyard. Well, Herbert is literally from Oregon's backyard in Sheldon. So, I just didn't have a whole lot of expectations, and that's obviously my fault, it seems like. But he's obviously made good on that. Like you said, the table was set for maybe a true freshman to have a place in this competition. But we all thought it would be the four-star guy from Oklahoma, Terry Wilson.
Right. What do you think's a bigger surprise, Herbert's rise or Johnson's fall?
Johnson's fall, even though he didn't get to practice last year with a turf toe injury, he was still so highly regarded out of high school, even though he was a project and had to, refine his throwing mechanics and then missed a lot of time. I still thought that he's always come across as a really smart guy. He's been talked about as a guy who really took that time and used it carefully to learn the playbook. So, the struggle to apparently translate that knowledge to the field is a little surprising for sure.
I think the thing that really surprises me about that is, okay, so you go ahead and you name Herbert the number 2, and then you name Terry Wilson number 3. So that's 2 true freshmen as 2 and 3, and then Johnson, who's already used a redshirt, as 4. I was surprised. Like, Johnson must have been noticeably worse than those two to be the number 4, because logic would tell you to just redshirt Terry Wilson and have Travis Johnson be the number 3, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it also must be that dramatic of a difference between those quarterbacks, because the coaches have not been shy in saying who is where on the depth chart for quarterbacks. I mean, like last year, you would have thought that Jeff Locke was going to win the job up until they announced Vernon. I mean, they were holding the cards so close to their vest. And this year, they were really like, no, Dakota's pulling away, and Justin really looks good.
I wonder how much of that is intentional this year, of them just being like, all right, last year we probably didn't need to pretend like Vernon and Jeff were so close, because like you said, it's been kind of a relative breath of fresh air this year about kind of the honesty they've had about where the separation is between them.
Yeah, I wonder if they kind of realized that pumping up Jeff like that didn't really do him any favors in the long run when he gets in.
Right.
And he didn't have the most consistent year. Obviously, he's not even really playing quarterback this year because he was deemed not so ineffective in some ways. So I just kind of wonder if they thought, you know what, it really didn't help our guys to pump him up like that. Even though you want the guy confident, I just don't know that it made a whole lot of sense to kind of make it as secretive as it was.
You think Saturday's going to be almost kind of like a spring game where we could see potentially 3 or 4 quarterbacks out there, or are they going to stick with Prukop and Herbert?
I bet they stick with Prukop and Herbert. They're both so relatively new to the program that I think they need every rep they can get.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right. Well, I guess we can kind of look briefly at the game. I don't think anyone should be getting too amped up for this one, other than the fact that it's a season opener. UC Davis is one of the worst teams in the Big Sky Conference and the FCS level in general. Written about a little bit about the connections between the two programs, but outside of those connections, that's about all they have in common. I think the Ducks are probably going to kind of do their traditional put up 60 to 70 points on this team. I mean, Prukop's Montana State team 2 years ago put up 77 points against UC Davis, and I don't think he had quite the weapons back at Montana State that he does now. So I think when you watch this game, there are some things that you can kind of pay attention to see progress. I think with the defense, like, you're not going to want to necessarily judge them by the score, but in terms of just watching to see if everyone's communicating well and if it looks like things are smooth on that 4-3, I think that's going to be worth watching more so than just, oh my gosh, we limited a FCS opponent to 10, 15 points.
Yeah, I don't think that total yardage is, again, going to be what you want to judge this defense by. That's just a bad stat these days with how often teams run 60, 70, 80 plays a game. You're going to get a ton of yardage from that. So, look at the per play yardage. Look at the success rates on 3rd and 4th down. Also look at 3rd and long. How does Oregon limit? That was something last year where even 3rd and long they couldn't really limit people. Can they get out of the situations they need to get out of? 3rd down, 3rd and long, limiting 4th downs. They were one of the worst in the country last year, among many things, but definitely on 4th down conversions. So I think that it doesn't have to be pretty, and no one's expecting Brady Hope to turn water into wine, but what they do need is to get off the field more often than they did last year. And part of that's got to be turnovers. They didn't produce a ton of turnovers last year. They did get nice penetration in sacks, more so than I think people give them credit for, but I want to see how they do in just those clutch situations where they have to get off the field.
It's such a weird concept to like expect the defense to be better this year when you have lost the defensive player of the year in DeForest Buckner, when Alex Balducci made a roster after the draft, when Joe Walker was drafted in the 7th round by the Eagles and it looked like he had a chance of making the team before going down with a knee injury last week. I think essentially what you're looking for this year is the difference between last year. There was some pretty decent individual players on that defense, and then this year you're kind of hoping for more of a kind of a whole system working in your favor.
Yeah, this year the expectation is that the what is it? What's the expression? The sum is better than the parts, or something.
Right.
It's like, it's they think that the system will be the showcase this year, and I guess we'll see. But I think you're right on track there, where it's like I think there should be some improvement, but I just don't know if it's really a good thing to think these guys are going to be top 30 defense. I mean, if they are, then Brady Hoke earns every single one of his dollars of his salary.
Yeah, if they're a top 30 defense, this team's got a good chance of probably going to the playoff.
Oh, absolutely. I think so too.
Yeah. And this is Brady Hoke's cheap year too. His contract doesn't really start kicking in until next season.
Yeah, this year he's still not the highest paid coach. That's Don Pelham. I think that's as much as politics as anything, to not kind of shove it right in Pelham's face that his successor is getting a ton more money. But yeah, next year Brady Hoke is going to make, I think, $700,000 to $750,000.
Yeah, because isn't he right under 4 right now?
I believe he's at 400,000. Yeah,
he's at 4, and I think Pelham's at like 405, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it seemed to me that was the gesture.
Yeah, I think it kicks into around 700 to 800 next year. So maybe he'll be able to afford to buy a house.
Is he still living at the Residence Inn in Eugene?
You know what? I haven't asked him. As you've kind of experienced with Brady Hoke this fall, there's not really a whole lot of time for elective questions or
idle chatter.
Yeah, idle chatter. Brady Hoke is very businesslike during his media availabilities. He gets in, he gets out, and doesn't really have a whole lot of extra time to answer goofy questions. But I think that would be awesome if he was living at the Residence Inn still, just because that Residence Inn gets absolutely booked on game days and game weekends. So it'd be kind of funny if he was rolling back in there with the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, a man of the people.
A man of the people. Which, side note, congratulations, Andrew Greif, new homeowner.
Thank you.
How's this week gone? Are you okay? Are you focused for tomorrow?
Well, it kind of put me behind on a big story that I'm writing right now. That
teaser.
Ducks fans, check OregonLive.com/Ducks. Tease right there. Saturday morning or even Friday afternoon, there might be a good story on pressure the Ducks face.
Pressure. Sorry.
But it's other than that, it's been a great week. It's been a great week.
Okay.
My home does not look like the Marcus Mariota Sports Performance Center. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a throne with golden egg as feet.
Your front door, in the words of Bruce Barnum, has a lock on it, and it doesn't talk to you.
Yeah, it's a good home, but it's never going to have Brazilian wood that doesn't burn like the Hatfield Down complex, and now I'm a little sad about that. The laminate just doesn't really cut it.
Well, let's get out of here on this one. Just a quick game day podcast. You got any predictions for tomorrow?
Oregon scored, I think, 63 points per game in every one of Helfrich's season openers. I think that continues. I do think UC Davis is a little bit better than we're giving them credit for. They were 2-9 last year, which looks really bad because they have not been good under their current coach, Ron Gould, who's a ex-U of O defensive back. But they do have 22, 23 starters back from last year. Just about every single spot has experience, and last year they were crushed by injuries. They're not going to win. I'm not saying they're going to win, but and I also don't think they're going to put a scare into Oregon like Eastern Washington did, or at least make Oregon uncomfortable. But there is a possibility that we could see the defense get tested a little bit. So I say Oregon wins 62-24.
Okay, well, you have it on record, so make sure to give Andrew a bunch of crap if he's even a point off of that. Well, anyways, everybody, we will be both at the game on Saturday, and you can find all of our work at OregonLive.com/ducks. We're both on Twitter at Tyson Alger, at Andrew Greif. We'll be running a live chat throughout the game, so come join us. And if you're listening to this on OregonLive.com, you can also find us on iTunes if you want to take us along with you. We wouldn't mind if you gave us a rating. In fact, we might like it. So we appreciate you all tuning in. I shared something on Twitter yesterday. We have over 100,000 downloads now on the Official Visit podcast. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll be back next week.
Let's take some viewer questions, some reader questions next week. Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. All right. See you guys.